My son started saying things he didn't know. He said that the shadow in the closet was waiting for me to tell the truth. And then he whispered, he wants you to say goodbye. My name is Rachel. I'm 35 and I'm a mother to a bright-eyed, peanut butter-loving 4-year-old named Eli. He's the kind of kid who waves at garbage trucks, wears his rain boots on sunny days, and thinks all problems can be solved with a Band-Aid and a hug. Until a few weeks ago, I believed I knew him better than anyone ever could. But now I'm not so sure I know him at all. It started with something small. We were driving home from the grocery store and he was half asleep in his car seat, murmuring in that soft, dreamy way kids do when they're on the edge of sleep. The radio was off, the windows were cracked, and it was one of those quiet spring evenings where everything feels suspended in warm light. "Mommy," he said, eyes fluttering open, "you cried in the car when I was in your belly." My heart stuttered. "What baby?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I glanced at him in the mirror. He was looking at the sky, not even at me. "You were in a parking lot. You had a green sweater. You cried a lot. But you said you were okay, even though you weren't." I felt cold and hot at the same time. It was true. Every word. I hadn't told a soul, not even my husband. It had been a Tuesday afternoon in November. I pulled into the CVS parking lot, gripping the wheel with swollen hands, and sobbed so hard I thought I might pass out. I was 7 months pregnant and so tired. I remember wiping my tears and saying out loud, "I'm okay. I'm okay," like a mantra to no one. But no one was there. No one could have known. And certainly not my son. I chalked it up to a weird coincidence. Kids say strange things. Maybe he overheard me talking to myself one day. Maybe I told my sister and forgot. I told myself something, anything, so I could sleep that night without crawling out of my own skin. But the things he said after that? There was no explaining them away. One evening, maybe a week later, I was brushing his teeth while he played with his toy dinosaur. He was giggling, foaming at the mouth like a rabid T-Rex, and then, out of nowhere, he went still. "There was a bald man in your room," he said, not looking at me. My hand paused mid-brush. "What? In your room? That day when Daddy went to work. You were sad and the man hugged you. But then Daddy came back early and he saw him. Daddy was sad too." I dropped the toothbrush. "Eli," I said slowly, kneeling in front of him, my hands trembling, "what are you talking about?" He blinked up at me like I was the one saying something strange. "The bald man. He had a ring like Daddy's, but on the other hand, he said your name funny. Like Ray." Daddy didn't talk. He just looked real mad and then left. I couldn't breathe. Because it was real. Every damn word. There was a man. His name was Aaron, and he'd been a mistake. A stupid, selfish mistake I made one afternoon during a fight with my husband when anger and loneliness and opportunity all collided in the worst possible way. My husband had been called into work. I thought I was alone. I didn't know he came home early. He never said a word. Not then. Not ever. I thought I got away with it. I was wrong. Eli started saying Aaron's name next. At first it was just, "Aaron likes trucks too," as if he'd been in the room. Then it was, "Aaron said he misses you." Then horrifyingly, Aaron said he wishes he was my daddy. I didn't know what to do. I started sleeping with the door locked, double-checking the baby monitor, watching him for signs of fever or delusion or, God help me, possession. I Googled everything from early-onset schizophrenia to reincarnation to child mediums. But none of the answers felt real. None of them fit. Then came the sentence that cracked my world wide open. It was a rainy Sunday. My husband was out front mowing the lawn, soaked to the bone, like he was punishing himself. Eli was playing on the rug with his stuffed animals, making them yell and tumble across the battlefield of Legos. He stopped, looked up, and said it so calmly I almost missed it. Daddy told me I might not be his. I stood there, dish towel in hand, barely breathing. "What did you say?" He smiled. He said it quiet. When I was going to sleep. He said, "You might not be mine, but I love you anyway." Then he kissed me and left the light on. I sat down right there on the floor and started shaking. My husband never said a word to me about it. Not a fight. Not a whisper. Not an accusation. He just told our 4-year-old son. I don't know what scares me more, that he knows, or that he doesn't know and is trying to get the truth through Eli. And now I'm caught in the middle of a storm that I thought had already passed. But the truth has a way of waiting, lurking in shadows, until it finds the smallest mouth to speak through. And now my son won't stop talking. I watched my husband mow the front lawn in the rain, soaking through his flannel like he didn't care. Like he wanted the weather to beat him down, as if maybe, just maybe, the sting of cold water could wash something off him he couldn't name. Or maybe it was something I put there. Inside, Eli was humming softly and placing all his stuffed animals in a neat line like they were waiting for roll call. I stared at him as if he might open his mouth again and rip another seam in my reality. I wanted to ask him more. I wanted to beg him not to say things he shouldn't know. But how do you tell a 4-year-old to stop speaking truths they have no business knowing? How do you beg for silence when the silence is killing you? I waited until Eli was asleep that night, his dinosaur night light casting shifting shadows across his cheeks, before I crept downstairs and found my husband sitting on the couch, his elbows on his knees, still damp from hours ago. "Can we talk?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't look at me, just nodded once. "I think Eli's been saying things about that day." A long silence. Then finally he turned to me. "Which day?" He knew exactly which day, but he wanted me to say it. I looked at the floor, unable to meet his eyes. "The day you came home early." Another beat of silence. Then, my heart was thudding like it wanted out of my chest. "Why didn't you say anything back then?" He gave a small, humorless laugh. "What was there to say, Rachel? I came home and I saw a man who wasn't me walking out of our bedroom. I didn't need a monologue to get the message. But you didn't ask. You didn't even look at me." He finally met my eyes and the pain in his was like a punch. "I didn't want to hear you lie to me." That broke something inside me. Because he was right. I would have lied. I was already lying in the worst ways, through omission, through cowardice, through hoping time would erase something it never could. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I started, but he raised a hand. "Don't," he said, his voice hollow. "Please. Don't give me the version that makes you feel better." I sank onto the armchair, cold all over. I didn't think you knew. And now Eli, he's saying things. Things he shouldn't know. About that day? About Aaron. He winced when I said the name. Like it still had weight, like it still stung. "I never said anything to him about that," I added quickly. "I swear. I did." That stopped me. "You what?" He looked back down at his hands. "That night. A few months after. I was drinking. You were upstairs asleep. I was just talking to him. He was still a baby. Could barely hold his head up. I told him I didn't know if he was mine. That I didn't know if I could love someone who might be a reminder of what you did." But then he looked up at me and smiled like I hung the moon. His voice cracked. And I knew even if he wasn't mine, he was still mine. Tears stung my eyes. "I don't know why he remembers that," he added. "Maybe he doesn't. Maybe kids just know things sometimes. Feel things. But he said your words almost exactly." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe he heard me." We sat in silence for a long time after that, the only sound the slow tick of the clock and the occasional car hissing by on wet pavement outside. Eventually, I asked the question that had been chewing at my insides. "Do you want to know for sure?" He looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You mean a paternity test?" I nodded. "I thought about it," he said. "A lot. I even bought one. It's still in the bathroom drawer." That hit me like a slap. I'd never seen it. Never even thought to look. "But I never used it," he added. "Because I was afraid." Afraid of what? That I already knew the answer. His words hung in the air like smoke. Upstairs, a creak, Eli turning in his bed, murmuring in his sleep. I wanted to run to him, scoop him up, promise him everything would be okay. But I couldn't. Because I didn't even know if I was going to be okay. Later that night, after my husband had gone upstairs without saying goodnight, I sat alone in the dark living room, the unopened DNA test burning a hole in my mind. I knew I should be the one to take it out. To face whatever truth we were all dancing around. But I couldn't move. Instead, I just listened. And I swear to God, I heard a voice from Eli's baby monitor whisper. "He already knows." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed listening to the silence stretch between my husband and me like a canyon neither of us could leap across. I could hear him breathing evenly beside me, too still, too calm to be asleep. But we both pretended. Pretending is what we've always been good at. And just before the dark began to turn gray with morning, I thought I heard it again. A voice through the monitor. Faint. Familiar. He already knows. I jolted upright, heart hammering in my throat. I stared at the monitor screen, watching the grainy infrared glow of Eli's room. He was asleep, curled around his stuffed bear, his chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. But someone had spoken. I got up, my bare feet whispering across the hardwood as I padded down the hallway and opened Eli's door as slowly and silently as I could. Nothing. No whispers. No voices. Just the quiet hum of the white noise machine and the creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. I walked to his bed and sat on the edge, brushing his hair off his forehead. His little fingers twitched like he was chasing something in a dream. "Baby," I whispered, "are you awake?" His eyes fluttered, and then, unexpectedly, he sat up, eyes wide and strange in the glow of the night light. "I told you," he said, groggy but insistent. "He's not mad at you." "But Daddy is." My stomach dropped. "Who told you that?" Eli looked toward the closet. "Not at me, at the closet." "Your friend," he said simply. "The bald one. He talks to me sometimes." The closet door was shut. I hadn't opened it since I put away the boxes of baby clothes Eli had outgrown. My mouth went dry. "Eli," I said slowly, my voice cracking. "There's no one in the closet." He gave me a tired, almost pitying look. "You can't see him, Mommy. But he sees you." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about guilt or memory. This was something deeper. Darker. He lay back down and closed his eyes, leaving me sitting there frozen in the quiet. And somewhere deep in my chest I felt a cold bloom of fear spread through me. Not fear of Aaron. Not even fear of what my husband might do if he ever said the words out loud. No. This was something else. It was the feeling that something unseen was pressing against the walls of our house. Watching. Waiting. The next morning I checked the baby monitor's audio history. Nothing. No recordings. No anomalies. I even called the manufacturer, desperate for a glitch, something rational. They told me there's no way it could have recorded a voice without someone being physically in the room. That same afternoon I went digging through the bathroom drawer while my husband was out walking Eli. And there it was. A small unopened DNA test kit, tucked behind a box of cough syrup and a half-used razor. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. The date on the receipt said it had been purchased a year and a half ago. So he'd been carrying this question for that long. How many times had he stood in the same bathroom staring at it, wondering if today was the day he'd open it? Swallow the truth? Walk away? I put it back without opening it. I didn't have the courage. Not yet. That night, I found my husband sitting in the garage, his hands covered in oil from fixing a mower that didn't really need fixing. I sat down beside him, silent. After a long pause, he spoke. "He talks about him a lot. You know that." I nodded. I never told him his name. Not once. I never even said it out loud. I didn't know what to say. Apologizing felt useless. Trying to explain would sound like excuses. And still beneath the surface was the haunting fear that this wasn't just about us anymore. He wiped his hands on a rag, his jaw clenched tight. "I think I saw him once," he said finally. "Aaron." My head whipped toward him. "What do you mean?" He shook his head, almost laughing in disbelief at himself. "It was a few months ago. I thought I was dreaming. Or maybe losing it. I got up to get a glass of water around 3 a.m., and I saw someone standing at the end of the hallway. Bald. Broad shoulders. Just watching." My skin prickled. "And you didn't tell me?" I asked. He looked at me exhausted. "We don't talk about anything anymore, Rachel. That's the problem, isn't it?" That night, I had a dream. I was standing in that CVS parking lot again, heavily pregnant, sobbing behind the wheel. But this time I wasn't alone. Aaron stood outside the car, watching me. He said nothing. Just stood there with his hands in his coat pockets, head tilted, like he was waiting for me to open the door. But it wasn't anger on his face. It was sadness. When I woke up, Eli was standing at the foot of our bed, his voice barely a whisper. "He wants you to tell the truth." I didn't say anything when Eli whispered that to me. "He wants you to tell the truth." I just stared at him, chest tight, throat dry, as he climbed into bed between us like it was the most natural thing in the world. He curled up beside me, and my husband didn't move. He didn't even open his eyes. But I knew he was awake. I could feel it in the stiff set of his shoulders, the way his back rose and fell too evenly. We were both pretending. Again. But something had changed. Something was changing. Eli's words weren't just eerie or innocent anymore. They were surgical. Like something was carving through the silence with a scalpel, peeling back all the layers we'd stacked over the truth. And the truth was this. I'd been living inside a house built on denial. And it was finally starting to collapse. The next morning, while Eli watched cartoons in the living room, my husband placed the DNA test kit on the kitchen counter. Just set it there between the bananas and the unpaid bills, like it was as ordinary as a loaf of bread. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. But he didn't have to. I understood. We took turns. Swabbed our cheeks. Sealed the envelope. He wrote the address without hesitation, like he'd done it in his head 1,000 times already. We didn't talk about what would happen next. We didn't talk about what we'd do if the test said he wasn't Eli's. We just waited. 3 days later, Eli refused to sleep in his room. He kept waking up screaming, pointing to the corner where his closet met the wall. "He's there again," he'd sob, clutching his bear. "He's mad this time. He's really mad." I held him so tightly I thought I might break him. He trembled in my arms like a little leaf in a storm. That night, he slept between us again, and I watched his face twitch and flinch all night like he was dreaming of something sharp and cruel. At dawn, my husband said, "Maybe we should talk to someone. A therapist. For him." I nodded, relieved. But Eli said something the next morning that made my blood run cold. "I don't like talking to strangers," he muttered while stirring his cereal. "Last time I did, he got stuck." "Who got stuck?" I asked gently, kneeling beside him. He looked up at me with those big brown eyes. Aaron's eyes, I suddenly realized, and whispered, "The man who came when Daddy left. The one you kissed when you cried." The test results came 4 days later. I knew the moment I saw the envelope in my husband's hands. He stood just inside the doorway after checking the mailbox, holding it like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He didn't open it. Just stared at it while Eli built a Lego tower at our feet. Then he handed it to me. "You open it," he said. I didn't want to. I'd spent the last 4 years convincing myself that DNA didn't matter. That he, my husband, was the father Eli knew and that love was enough. But suddenly I wasn't so sure. Because if it didn't matter, why was I shaking? I opened it. My eyes scanned the words. Once. Twice. Then I looked up at my husband. His face didn't change. Not even a flinch. But the air between us shifted. He knew. I nodded. He wasn't Eli's biological father. He just stared at the floor for a moment, then turned around and walked out the back door. I didn't stop him. That night the house felt different. He didn't come home for dinner. Didn't answer my calls. Eli ate chicken nuggets in silence. He didn't ask where Daddy was. He just kept glancing over his shoulder like someone was standing behind him. After I tucked him in, I lingered at the door. "Is he here?" I asked, not sure what answer I wanted. Eli sat up. "He's sad. He didn't want Daddy to know." I closed the door, my hands cold and useless at my sides. I walked into our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty pillow beside mine. That's when I heard the sound. A low creak. Then a thump. I froze. It was coming from Eli's room. I rushed down the hall, heart pounding, threw open the door and stopped. Eli was standing in the middle of the room, eyes wide, staring at the closet. The door was open. "I told him," he said, voice shaking. "I said it wasn't his job to keep the secret anymore." I followed his gaze. The closet was empty, but the air was thick, charged, like static before a lightning strike. And suddenly I wasn't sure we were alone. The closet door hung open like a mouth, silent but hungry. I stood frozen on the threshold of Eli's room, heart thudding in my throat, watching him tremble in the soft glow of the nightlight. His small frame was stiff, his hands clenched at his sides. "There's no one there, baby," I said gently, though even I didn't believe myself anymore. He shook his head. "He's here. But not like before." "Not like before how?" Eli's lips quivered. "He's not watching now. He's waiting." I stepped inside toward the closet. I don't know why. Maybe because something inside me had snapped. Some desperate maternal instinct that said if my child was afraid, I would stand between him and whatever haunted the shadows, even if I was the one who'd invited it in. "Who are you waiting for?" I whispered. The room was so quiet I could hear the ticking of Eli's dinosaur wall clock, the hum of the monitor, the rain starting against the window, and then I heard it. A breath. Low. Ragged. Coming from just inside the closet. I flung the door wide. Nothing. Just boxes of baby clothes. A stack of picture books. A blue laundry basket. But the air, it wasn't right. Felt thick like walking underwater. My skin prickled with goosebumps. My ears rang with a pressure I couldn't explain. I turned back toward Eli. He was staring past me, his eyes wide with pure, childlike terror. "Mommy," he whispered, "he says it's your turn to tell the truth now." I don't know how I slept that night. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every decision that led us here like a cruel film reel on loop. I hadn't heard from my husband since he walked out with the test results. I didn't know where he went, his mother's house, maybe, or just driving aimlessly through the backroads outside town like he used to when we fought. The next morning I called him. Voicemail. I texted. Nothing. Eli didn't speak much. He just stared. Drew pictures. Quiet, eerie ones. That afternoon I found one of his drawings crumpled under the couch. It was in crayon, his usual mess of bright colors and uneven lines. But this one made me sit down on the floor like my knees couldn't hold me. There were 3 stick figures. A woman, a man, and a child. And standing in the corner, half-shaded in black crayon, was another man. Bald. No face. Just empty white where eyes and a mouth should have been. Above it, in shaky 4-year-old scrawl, he'd written, "He says I'm not yours either." I didn't remember much about the last time I saw Aaron. Not until I made myself sit down and really think about it. He'd said goodbye like he already knew it was over. Like he knew it had always been temporary. "You love the idea of me," he told me, buttoning his shirt. Not me. Never really me. And I had laughed. Cruel, defensive. "You're right," I'd said. "I don't love you. I don't even like you." I remember the look on his face when I said it. Not anger. Something deeper. A sort of grief. "I hope your husband finds out," he said. I slammed the door behind him. 2 weeks later, I heard he died. A freak accident. Carbon monoxide poisoning. An old water heater in his rental apartment that no one had checked in years. I went to the funeral. I didn't cry. I told myself that part of my life was gone, buried, done. But now I wasn't so sure he was ever really gone. That night, I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I opened the box at the back of my closet. Inside, a single sonogram printout, some old hospital bands, and a bundle of letters I'd never mailed. Written to Eli when I was pregnant. Raw. Conflicted. Honest. I flipped through them, searching for anything that might explain what was happening. And I found one. Unfinished. Torn at the bottom like I'd meant to rip it up. "Dear Eli, I don't know what kind of mother I'll be. I don't even know if I'll be able to look at you without remembering what I did. I want to love you. But I'm scared. Scared you'll be him. That you'll carry that part of me forever, the part one wants so badly to erase." I couldn't breathe. I'd buried this fear like a splinter in my soul. Thought if I never spoke it aloud it would dissolve with time. But my son felt it. Children don't know how to lie, not the way adults do. They don't bury shame. They wear it. They absorb it like smoke in their lungs. And Eli had been breathing mine for years. Around midnight, I heard footsteps downstairs. I grabbed a flashlight. Moved slowly. Every stair creaked like it was warning me. I turned the corner into the kitchen. And there he was. Not Aaron. Not exactly. It was a shape. Vague. Blurred around the edges like someone halfway between memory and dream. He stood by the dining room table where the test results still lay folded, untouched since the day they arrived. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. He didn't speak. Just looked at me. And then slowly he pointed toward Eli's room. And vanished. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just stood in the kitchen, the silence pulsing in my ears after he vanished. Something had changed. The air was wrong. Not just heavy, tilted, like gravity itself was shifting around the truth. My feet carried me before my mind caught up. Back upstairs, past the framed wedding photo on the wall that now felt like a relic from someone else's life. I walked to Eli's room, opened the door slowly. He was awake, sitting cross-legged on his bed, the covers kicked off. Waiting. "He said you saw him," Eli whispered. I nodded. I couldn't lie anymore. I did. Eli didn't look afraid. Just sad. "He's tired," he said. "He doesn't want to be here anymore. But he can't go until you tell the truth." I crouched beside the bed, my hands shaking. "What truth, baby? You loved him. Even when you said you didn't. He knows. That's why he stayed. That's why he got stuck." The word echoed in my mind. Stuck. Aaron had died alone. Angry. Full of words he never got to say. And I'd never given him a goodbye that was real. Just bitterness and slammed doors and silence. I thought silence was closure. But it's not. It's a cage. And I built it around all of us. I didn't sleep. I sat in the hallway outside Eli's room, knees drawn to my chest, listening to every creak, every gust of wind. I half expected Aaron to return to speak, to finish what he'd started. But nothing came. The next day I called my husband. He picked up after the third ring. Said nothing. I need you to come home, I said. I don't know if I can, he replied, and his voice was thick, exhausted. I know he's not yours. But he's still ours. And I can't carry this alone anymore. A long pause. Did you see him too? He asked. Yes, I whispered. Then, I'll be there in an hour. He didn't knock. He just walked in. We stood in the kitchen like strangers, like survivors pulling ourselves out of wreckage we both caused. I saw him again, I told him. In the kitchen. He didn't speak. But he pointed. To Eli's room. Why? I think he wants us to stop pretending. To admit it? To feel it. I opened the drawer, pulled out the test results, unfolded them, and placed them on the table between us. I didn't say the words. He didn't need to hear them again. Then I reached back into the drawer and pulled out something else. A photo. I hadn't looked at it in years. Aaron and me. One stupid night, laughing at something that probably wasn't even funny. His arms slung around me. My eyes bright. Not in love, not exactly, but craving something. Connection. Escape. I placed the photo beside the test results. I never said goodbye, I said. Not really. I don't need to see this, my husband muttered, turning away. You do, I said. Because it's why this is happening. Why he's here. He's not here to ruin us. He's here because I left him stuck. I poisoned this house with silence and shame and guilt. And Eli, he breathed it in. He didn't speak. Just sank into a chair and buried his face in his hands. I walked to Eli's room, opened the door. He was sitting on the floor coloring quietly. No ghosts, no whispers, just crayons and paper and a soft humming noise. Can we say goodbye now? He asked without looking up. I swallowed. Yes. We can. That night, we lit a candle. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, the one where I had betrayed my vows, where secrets had festered, and I read a letter aloud. One I wrote that afternoon, shaking and crying and furious with myself. Aaron, you weren't perfect. Neither was I. But you deserved more than a door slammed in your face. You deserved closure. You deserved to know that even though I couldn't be what you wanted, I still remember your kindness. Your laugh. I still remember that day when everything in me felt empty and you sat beside me and told me I didn't have to pretend to be strong. You were there when I needed someone and I repaid you with silence. I'm sorry. Asterisk, you don't have to stay. You don't have to watch. I release you. I forgive myself. I forgive you. Please go home. I burned the letter. We sat in the stillness. And for the first time in weeks, the air shifted again, not heavy, not twisted. Just still. Eli slept through the night. No whispers. No voices. No man in the closet. The next morning, I found Eli's latest drawing taped to the fridge. It was the three of us, me, Eli, and my husband. A little house. A sun. A tree. And nothing in the corner. No shadow man. No bald figure. Just us. And scrawled in shaky crayon underneath. We're okay now. I didn't expect things to go back to normal. Not right away. Not maybe ever. You don't walk through fire and come out untouched. You don't bury something that deep and expect your hands to come out clean. What you can do, what we chose to do, is sit in the ash and start sifting. That morning, after Eli's drawing went up on the fridge, I found my husband in the backyard, sitting on the old swing set we bought when I was still pregnant. He wasn't swinging. Just staring at the grass, glinting like tiny diamonds beneath the weight of spring. I sat beside him without a word. It took him a few minutes to speak. I hated you, he said simply. Not cruel. Just honest. I nodded. I hated me too. He turned his head, studied my face like he hadn't really looked at me in a long time. I don't think I was enough for you. I think that scared me more than the affair. Tears welled up before I could stop them. You were always enough. I didn't know how to be honest with someone who truly loved me. He nodded. So we lied instead. Silence stretched between us. Not heavy this time. Not accusing. Just space, honest and raw. I want to try again, I said. If you do. He didn't answer right away. But he reached out and took my hand. That was enough. We started therapy. All three of us. Eli went first, play therapy, gentle sessions where he could draw and talk and build Lego castles that crumbled only when he wanted them to. He stopped talking about Aaron. Stop seeing things in corners. But once after his third session, he looked up at me in the car and said, "He's really gone now. I think he forgave you." I cried the whole drive home. My husband and I took longer. We had to relearn how to talk to each other. How to sit in the same room without skirting around the tender places. How to argue without sharpening old wounds into weapons. Some days were worse than others. But there were small moments like when his hand brushed mine at the sink, or when he asked if I wanted coffee the way he used to, that made the ache feel a little less sharp. Forgiveness is not a moment. It's a million tiny decisions. And I had to forgive myself too. That might be the hardest part. 6 months later we moved. Nothing dramatic. Just a rental across town. A fresh start. No ghosts in the closet. No history in the walls. On our last night in the old house, I let myself walk into Eli's room one last time. The walls were bare. The floor clean. The closet open and empty. But I swear, I could still feel him there. Not watching. Not angry. Just done. I whispered one last goodbye. Not to Aaron exactly. To the version of myself who lived in this house. The one who lied and broke and pretended. I left her behind. Our new house has light. Big windows. A kitchen that smells like cinnamon in the mornings. A backyard where Eli chases fireflies and my husband grills burgers and we all sit on a blanket and listen to music drifting through the screen door. Eli is 5 now. Still strange and bright and beautiful. Still says odd things sometimes. But not about ghosts. Now it's just kid things. I think clouds have feelings, he told me last week, licking peanut butter off his fingers. They cry when they're lonely. I smiled. Yeah, I think they do too. He doesn't remember the old house. Or Aaron. Or the things he said that chilled me to the bone. But sometimes when I look at him just right, when he laughs a certain way or tilts his head when he's thinking, I see something familiar. A kindness. A fire. Maybe that part of Aaron stayed. Not the shadow. Not the weight. Just the light. And that's enough.